The views and opinions expressed in our program are those of the speakers and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. All rights reserved. Are you searching for that voice of reason in these troubled times? Do some things just not make sense? We thought so too, and that's exactly how Dave, Richard, and I came together. My name is Kelsey, and the three of us are here to explore and seek the truth, expose corruption, and unravel and untwist media lies and propaganda. We are determined to help navigate through this unparalleled, extraordinary time in history with everyday people emphasizing open-mindedness, free thinking, and a desire to be empowered at the grassroots level, working with what nature has given us and protecting that from those who are exploiting it. Together, with the help of our listeners, we will sow acres of truth. You can visit our website at acresoftruth.com, and here you will find more information on how you can find us in places like YouTube, Rumble, Spotify and Apple Music, Twitter, and so much more. Welcome to our special edition series, SDG'S and What You Need to Know. Together, we will be explaining and discussing the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Our mission is to educate everyday citizens about SDGs, what they are, what they mean, how the laws and policies that are and have been passed can and will affect us, not only here in Canada, but around the world. Additionally, by learning and understanding these 17 goals, we can all become one step closer in helping to affect change in this world from a grassroots perspective. My name is Kelsey from Saskatoon, along with Dave and Richard. We are Acres of Truth. Joining us is our special guest, Mark, who has been talking about the agenda for 20 years now. Welcome, gentlemen.
Greetings, Kelsey. It's Dave from Winnipeg, Ag Specialist.
Greetings, Kelsey. My name is Richard, and I'm a farmer from southern Saskatchewan.
Hi, Kelsey, Dave.
Crises. I'd like to turn over the mic to Mark at this time to begin our discussion.
A digital city or digitally controlled city. And that's exactly what they're moving towards. We've seen the models, we've seen them talk about what their ideas are. They want, if there is even a nuclear family or a traditional family in the future, in their future, there really isn't. They really just want people living in a box, in a pod, where everything, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. So all of these corporations are going to own everything. You're going to rent from them. And you're going to be hooked into the social credit system where literally the place you're in could be used as a meeting room during the day while you're off, working as a slave somewhere. So you can get your universal basic income at the end of the month. And probably working your fingers to the bone, as your role in this world. And you don't own a car. You can't actually determine where it is you want to go. That'll be determined for you. Everything will be determined for you. Where you work, how much you work, how much you make, what you eat, how much you consume, and again, all of this stuff is going to be on a rent basis. So you'll own nothing. You won't own your home. You won't own, the place you live. You won't own even the utensils. You won't buy anything. You'll just rent things, and everything will be owned by the corporations. And that's the existence. And then you'll live under the social credit system. Everything will be digital. Your currency's digital. Your ID's digital. You're tracked everywhere you go. Your money is where you spend your money, if you're even able to spend anything anywhere, anyway, is controlled. And so ultimately, they want you living like a rat. They want you living in a pod in these mega cities, off the land, and you can almost see how they've been accomplishing some of this even with video games. And we see our youngsters dedicating most of their spare time to being fixed to a video screen and a TV attached to a video game. That's their existence. And I seen a meme the other day. I think I mentioned this in the previous discussion, where there's a girl in a fetal position with virtual reality goggles on, and they could very well have had a feeding tube stuck in her. That's her existence. That's her life. And when we're talking about population or depopulation and population reduction, they want to get the worst population down to 1 billion. Um, you know, if you're only managing or controlling 1 billion people, pretty easy to do if they're all living in cities and under this social credit system. And China's the model for that, by the way. They've already instituted that, and just wait for digital currency and digital ID and everything. They'll know everything about you. You won't be able to go anywhere without the state knowing and controlling everything. And that's people really have to start wrapping their head around what all of this means and what they want to do. There was a model city that was put out in a video form a couple of months ago in the Middle East where they have this idea of creating basically it's a long city um, and but walled, and so everyone lives in their pod and you don't see anything outside that wall, and that's how they keep everybody within these cities. It's just an incredible dystopian um, thing that they have us headed towards, but hey, that's what they want, that's what they're going to do, and if we don't say no, um, you know this is we're fighting for our kids future and the future of our grandkids, and it's getting very serious, and people better start taking this seriously.
Are you enjoying this episode? You can find all previous episodes at acresoftruth.com.
Over time, we've seen our communities erode, it all move into the cities. And I think that's been done over the past, 40, 50 years, for the most part. And that's happened because of the capitalism greed by making, taking the mom and pop stores out of small communities, right? So, so now they're looking at a problem because they gained, right? So, I mean, we created a problem, but their gain was to get everybody in the city. So it's basically bigger stores to get their supplies, and it's less basically transit that happens and, to get the goods and services out to the smaller towns like where I live, right? So they, part of the facts they say in 2021, 99% of the world's urban population live in areas that exceed the new air quality guidelines. Well, that's obviously talking about bigger cities with high pollution because they've wanted to move people to save money to not transport goods out to the communities. The answer to that is I would say that big cities are not sustainable. That's the way I see it. And really they're not because a service industry can't just service itself and be a profitable business, and that's somewhat of another problem in the cities. But we got there basically by saving a dollar here and there instead of we our mom and pop stores in our local communities, the bigger Walmarts, and we drove 70 miles or so in my case to go to a Walmart, to save $10. And was it worth it? No, it wasn't. Did we know what we were doing? No, we didn't. And so we watched our communities die.
Yeah, 100%. We've seen that, over the decades, even in the last number of years. You see, regional hospitals being closed throughout Saskatchewan and Alberta and Manitoba, and emergencies being closed, and so you look at elderly and services, healthcare services not being available. So what is their option? They have to move into the city. They have to. So all of these things are being done so that people just decide the best option for us is to move to the city, and all of this is by design, and so we've seen this, and we know that this is the agenda that they have for us. They want everybody in the cities because if there's a bunch of people living out in rural Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Manitoba, they're incredibly hard to control. And all of a sudden, you have all these people living in freedom and, self reliant and self determinate and independent and within their community. And that goes against everything they want. against all that control that they need. I mean, Dennis Meadows said it in his short 2-minute interview that um, if we want 8 or 9 billion people on the planet, then we have to live under a dictatorship, a strong dictatorship. And so that's what they have in store for us until they can, eradicate 6 billion people. And that's it. So yeah, it's all about control. And this is the infrastructure that they're putting in place so they can do that.
Well, exactly. And we only need to look back at history. And coming from Manitoba, we look at the Hudson Bay Corporation and what they did to the earlier homesteaders and settlers. They created in-house credit, inflated the prices, and everybody was forced to purchase from them at whatever price they chose. And this ties right into the smart cities, this urban lifestyle. It's like you're going to work at job A or B. You're going to be given so and so many ESG dollars or ESG pennies or credits or whatever that metric is going to be. And they will decide where you're going to eat your meal and what calories you're going to take. You're not going to be eating steak dinners for Friday night supper. It could be pork and beans, it could be soy, it could be whatever. It could be ramen noodles and say have a nice day.
It could be crickets.
It could be crickets, absolutely. We've got a couple of cricket factories, one in London. But to the point of how intensive these urban environments are going to be. We talk about air quality or lack thereof. You're creating noise 24/7. You're sharing a pod with one or more individuals. You could be hotbedding. So you get out of your bed in the morning, and 10 minutes later, a new person climbs into that same bed and goes to sleep and does their 8-hour shift. This completely messes with people's circadian clocks. Everything is kind of going to be shuffled. You will be living in kind of a dystopian future, which is bleak, not self-satisfying. Nothing good is ever happening, and you'll be living in a state of depression, I suspect, and under heavy medication. Whatever they prescribe, that's what you're going to be taking. On the other side of this is the capital intensity. We're talking about high-tech cameras, sensors, other technologies that are running 24/7, nonstop, consuming tremendous amount of energy. Because you got to remember, all this data is going to be stored on a computer server somewhere from now till infinity. These servers need heating, cooling, ventilation, all these types of things to keep them operational. And again, this speaks to they're concerned about the world warming. It's like, well, these servers and computer facilities are generating tremendous amount of heat, which are actually having a measurable effect in the communities that they're in. And we'll be seeing these unfold in major cities right around you. The economic impacts on the real estate. Suddenly a pod could be worth what? 50,000, 100,000 what? Digital currencies. How is anybody else, except for the select few at the top, going to afford anything other than a pod or other than a living arrangement with 3-4 other individuals? It just speaks to disastrous results where people's frustrations are going to bubble and boil over crime. God knows what that's going to look like. Even though you're tracked digitally 24/7, I see random incidences that are going to take place because people have just had it enough, and they'll be prescribing to violence or some other means of venting their frustration. A counselor might not be enough.
Dystopian nightmare, absolutely.
Yeah, you can't control a population or control humanity. The best way to do that is let us all prosper and teach good moral foundations, and from there we'll develop great societies. But they're not doing that. They're demoralizing everybody. They're making everyone feel the oppression of the government, or feel like they can't succeed. and they're given their little tidbits of bribery. People should go work in a corporation so you get your pensions and you get your security and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, if you're a plumber, why are you working for that corporation? Can't you just, buy a truck? You're the expert. You're the one with the actual plumbing certificate. Why are you working for the big corporation? For what reason? Serve your own community or your own local area. And then they've taken that ability or desire more so, to own a business away from people. And it's been destructive all along. And we always hand that kind of power over to the government, right? If we have a problem in our community with, homeless or whatever it is, like, why isn't the community taking care of itself? Why do we run to the government that they should solve homeless? Well, why shouldn't that community do it? Like, it's that simple. Like, we've given our power to these governments and they never do anything right. And well, we're suffering the ill effects of this. And it's basically gave them the opportunity and the power to do this to us because we are not turning our backs on them and saying, no, we don't need you to do this. We'll clean up our community ourselves. Thank you very much. And that's what the will of the people should be doing. And I think that's a great solution.
Humans are a funny beast because, and I've lived it. I worked for the government for 25 years, and I understand the sense of it being a trap because people want their pensions, and if they have their 10 years in, they don't want to give that up, and experience actual self-reliance and freedom in the open market with a business. They're much more secure and content working for the man, but you're then turned into just a number. You've given up your identity. You aren't who you're supposed to be. You're literally and the unions love to treat their union members as numbers, and so you become this number, this entity that isn't valued, that isn't appreciated. You're basically just filling somebody's suit or uniform, and that's it. And you end up, um, you know, this lifeless individual that's literally had their life sucked out of them because of your dedication to that corporation or this government um, entity. And so I really realized, when I got out at 25, I got out of Dodge as quick as I could when I was 44 years old, and I started my own business. And what a phenomenal experience that's been, and the freedom and just my own sense of identity has been restored through that process. And so you're absolutely right. Is they understand human nature. They understand how people operate, and once people are sucked into this vortex of corporatism or government um, uh, um, public service, it's really tough to get out because people get that sense of security, that guaranteed paycheck. There's very little risk, and they know it. So, um, but I can tell you, life is way sweeter when there's some risk involved. When you have to actually, you're responsible for your own prosperity. um, there's a liberation in that, and it's phenomenal. And I wish more people would understand that.
Our next agenda will be, talking more how they plan on controlling the cities by controlling the, you know, flow of necessities to operate in that city. So yeah, it'll be like putting people in a chicken coop.
Yeah, Richard, actually, I'd like to touch on that because we've heard in the last couple of years, especially this language of smart cities or 15-minute smart cities. And exactly to your point there. And a fun fact here, that definition was put out about what a smart city was by the World Economic Forum. But interestingly enough, that definition was actually first published and originally published on the World Bank website, who is a World Economic Forum member. And that definition is this: what is a smart city? We've heard the term in context as diverse as urban planning and governance, transport, energy, the environment, health, and education. We've also noticed that the notion of smart cities relies on a range of technologies, including the Internet of Things, or IoT, mobile solutions, big data, artificial intelligence, or AI, and blockchain. Because of this connection with technology, we've had concerns about how smart cities will address issues such as data privacy and social exclusion. We see a risk that urban areas with poor web connectivity could be left out of the smart cities trend. We'd like to continue an open dialogue on this trend. So that was a definition that was put out by the World Bank originally on smart cities. So when you see the Internet of Things or IoT, data, AI, and blockchain mentioned in one sentence, it can be translated as surveillance, social credit scores, and digital currencies, no matter how they dress it up. Basically a prison. You are listening to an Acres of Truth podcast. Join us in the conversation over on Twitter. Our handle there is @AcresOfTruth, or to find more episodes, visit acresoftruth.com.
Control of every aspect of your life.
Yeah, I think it's really important for people to dig into that and look into understand it. On the surface, it sounds great, right? But if you really dig into it, it's extremely dystopian.
Doesn't sound great to me. Every time anyone tells me what's best for me, I I question, is it really? I never accept. I know what's best for me. I don't need somebody to tell me what's best for me.
Well, and you look at Target 11.4, where they talk about strengthening efforts to protect and safeguard the world's cultural and natural heritage. And so, you're talking about the Internet of Things, and it reminds me of how many of our First Nation communities do not have reliable high-speed internet today. They're still stuck on dial-up or have zero internet. There is no access. And this just speaks to all the decisions that AI will be making for them, because we know that the WF and all their partners aren't going to be able to regulate thousands, millions of people. They're going to be relying very heavily on AI to do it. And Kelsey, you mentioned privacy. I think we were headed towards a world where you have no privacy. And Mark mentioned, some chapters ago about implants and other technologies that will be doing your thought processing and your thought policing. This is very dangerous territory, and places that, again, you look at it to strengthen. That's a positive word, but this does exactly the opposite.
That's a wrap, folks. You've been listening to an Acres of Truth special edition podcast series. We would like to thank you so much for joining us in this journey. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with others on your social media platforms. Be sure to check out our website, acresoftruth.com, for more information on other podcasts and where you can find them. Additionally, feel free to send your questions or comments to info@acresoftruth.com. Thanks again for listening.